I want to talk to you about how to freeze your credit this year. I want to give you a few steps that you need to follow if you want to really freeze your credit real fast this year. So, here are the generalities. When you think about freezing your credit, I want you to really think about protecting your privacy, protecting your personal data. So, freezing your credit restricts who can access your credit reports. While some entities can still view your reports, a credit freeze can actually prevent identity thieves from using your information to open new credit accounts, right? So you are really preserving your information. And if you have a reason, let's say, to believe that you are a victim of identity theft, or if you simply want to safeguard your credit reports, I want to explain to you that what you need to do step by steps, especially if you are, let's say, if you have current credit accounts open. Okay, so when you close your eyes and think about a credit freeze, I want you to think about the. By the way, a credit freeze can also be called a security freeze. So you have those two words are sort of interchangeable. So basically, a credit freeze limits who can access your credit file. In particular, it prevents creditors from checking credit reports. I mean, your credit reports during the application process for a new loan or a credit card, or even line of credit for that matter. If someone tries to use your personal info to open, let's say, a fraudulent account, a credit freeze blocks that attempt. At the same time, it will keep you from getting approved from credit unless you unfreeze your report. So it's one of those things where you have to think about when you initiate it, because it's a total let's say a total protection program. Okay. Now, freezing your credit doesn't stop all credit inquiries though. When your credit is frozen, you can still review your credit reports anytime you wish, as can parties such as creditors if you already have an account with them. Landlords you have authorized to screen your credit. Employers you have authorized to run a credit check during the job application process. You also have debt collection agencies, credit card companies pre-screening you for an offer, insurance companies you have authorized to help secure a new policy. And finally, you also have certain government agencies for purposes such as collecting child support and executing court orders or warrants. If you want to freeze your credit, it's important to really have a clear idea about the steps you need to take to actually ensure there is no problem in the end, okay? So you can freeze your credit reports for free, but the process can take some time because you'll need to submit a credit freeze, like a freeze request with each of the three major credit bureaus. So you have to contact Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion separately and initiate the process. So it's one of those things where don't think that there is actually a process whereby you just initiate the process with one and it's replicated automatically with the others. No, you have to go separately. So submitting actually a request through an online account with H Bureau is generally the fastest option. However, you can also request a credit freeze by phone or mail. So that's really good because if for any reason you want to go a lot faster, this could be a possibility that you want to explore. Okay, and so when you actually contact credit union, like when you contact TransUnion, Equifax, or Experian, make sure that you have your full name, your date of birth, your social security number, and the address history for the past 2 years. They will ask you for the past 24 months your address history. So if you're requesting a credit freeze via mail, be prepared to include identity verification such as copy of a government issued photo ID or social security card, and proof of address such as a copy of a utility bill or bank statement. If you are requesting a security freeze for a child who has a credit report, you'll need to submit proof that you have to really have proof for both of your identities. You also need to provide documentation such as a birth certificate or a court order showing that you are the parents or other authorized representative. So I'm going to show you on the screen here. So we have a nice recap of how to put a freeze on your credit report with each of the three credit reporting agencies. So I'm putting this on the screen, a table that shows the how to do it with Experian via phone, online, and via mail. Same thing for Equifax and also TransUnion. So please save this recap so you can really go back to it if you have questions. So let me give you the details here. When to freeze your credit. When should you initiate the process? Okay. A security freeze can be a good way to protect yourself from identity theft. That's very sure. So if you want to preserve your personal data, then this could be a great opportunity to freeze your credit. So in particular, a credit freeze can be worth it, especially if you are trying to freeze your or your child's credit in the following situations. So we have four major situations where a credit freeze is actually could be warranted. So you believe that someone may have stolen your personal information, particularly your social security number. If you think for any reason that somebody has stolen your social, then you really have to make sure that you freeze your credit as soon as possible, like you do it right away. I give you all the addresses, the addresses of the three bureaus for you to contact them, the phone numbers also. So that's the first option. If you believe that someone may have stolen your personal info, you want to freeze your credit. Number two, if you have been notified that your personal information, including your social security number, has been stolen, like you have a notice from law enforcement or a notice from let's say a data repository or a data platform that your data could be somewhere on the dark web, whatever. So this is a good opportunity to freeze your credit. And you also, the third scenario where you want to freeze your credit is that you don't have plans to apply for credit anytime soon, and you don't want to regularly monitor your credit reports for fraudulent activity. Because a credit freeze is just sitting there in the background protecting you. You don't have to do anything active, okay? And the fourth scenario where you might want to have a security freeze is if you are concerned about your child's social security number and other personal information falling into the wrong hands. So children, based on our investigation, are especially vulnerable to identity theft because they typically have a clean credit history. Okay, and so basically, it could be a great idea to freeze your child's credit to avoid any potential identity theft down the line, because you just never know. So that's one of those things where you want to be a little proactive in making sure that your child's sort of data is secure across the board. So if you're thinking about how to freeze your credit, it's important to really understand when and how to unfreeze your credit, right? You can freeze your credit. Yes. When do you freeze your credit? You've seen the steps. I spoke to you about the steps to take to freeze your credit, but there could be a time when you have to unfreeze your credit. So when and how should you unfreeze your credit? So a credit freeze will remain in place indefinitely. So there is no there's no time limit. Like, you'll be there for 1 year. No. It could be there for 20 years or 50 years. If you don't go back and actually unfreeze it, it will stay there forever. Okay. So by the way, when you in business parlance, specialists use the term thaw. So if you have to thaw your credit reports or your credit anytime, it means that you have to unfreeze your credit. Okay. So you can unfreeze or thaw your credit anytime you would like. In particular, you should unfreeze your credit reports before applying for a loan or a credit card. Otherwise, it could actually delay the underwriting process, particularly when you have, let's say, if you have a lender who is really busy, like who has a lot of applications, you want to really accelerate the process for you. So depending on your needs, you can remove a credit freeze permanently, or you can lift it temporarily, specifying when you want the freeze to be lifted and for how long. So you have the possibility to specify the time limit where you can thaw or unthaw your credit. Okay. So if you are wondering how to unlock your credit freeze, you can use the same methods provided for submitting your initial freeze request. Okay. Same thing. Nothing has changed at all. So if you submit your request to thaw a credit freeze online or by phone, The bureaus must complete it within 1 hour, though it can also happen instantaneously. If you file a request via mail, the bureaus have 3 business days to complete the thaw. As soon as they get the data, by the way. So you have to contact. Just want to specify. You have to contact every bureau specifically. You got to reach out to TransUnion. You got to reach out to Experian, and you got to reach out to Equifax. Okay, they don't have a uniform process whereby you just simultaneously contact all 3 bureaus at once. Let me talk to you about credit lock versus credit freeze, because you might have heard this terms a lot. Sometimes people speak about credit lock, sometimes they talk about credit freeze. So what are the big differences were? So like a credit freeze, a credit lock restricts access to your credit reports. So in those two instances, credit freeze and credit lock, you do have a restriction, like you have a restricted access to your credit reports. However, let me give you some of the key differences between the two options. So credit locks may cost money. So when you think about a credit lock, this may cost money. Security freezes are free to place, but you may need to subscribe to a paid credit monitoring or identity theft protection service to place a credit lock. So for example, you have an Aura or Experian CreditWorks Premium, cost about $24.99 per month, and includes 3 bureau credit monitoring and Experian credit lock, which allows you to quickly lock your Experian credit file. Okay. The second main distinction here is that a credit lock may expire. So because credit locks are administered by a credit monitoring or identity theft service, they may expire if you cancel your subscription. Okay, so those credit locks may really cancel automatically if you don't have the subscription anymore. So you got to maintain your subscription to really keep the to keep actually the lock actually alive, or let's say active, if you will. And a credit lock may come with inquiry alerts. So if you pay for a service that locks your credit report, you may also receive alerts if someone tries to access your credit report. So it's more interactive, if you will, in terms of accessibility, but also in terms of scalability. That's how you want to look at it. Okay, and one thing I want to say here is that when you think about a credit lock versus a credit freeze, it really depends on how deep, and how broad you want the protection that how broadly you want to protect your private data, for that matter. So if you think about freezing your credit this year, I want to also talk to you about fraud alerts versus credit freeze, because sometimes you hear the terms credit lock versus credit freeze, but you might also hear fraud alerts versus credit freeze. So if you do have plans to apply for a line of credit in the near future and you don't want to freeze and unfreeze your credit, you can also consider a fraud alert. So a fraud alert is actually free to place with all 3 major credit bureaus. It doesn't prevent creditors from reviewing your credit reports to approve new accounts. Instead, what it does is that a fraud alert tells your lenders that you may be a victim of identity theft and requires them to verify your identity before extending credit. So this is kind of cool because you have an extra layer of accountability during the loan or credit card or line of credit underwriting process. Okay, and an initial fraud alerts last 1 year, but it can be renewed after that or removed before a year has passed. So if you are in the military, or if you are in the military on active duty, you may qualify for a 1-year active duty fraud alert. And if you have reported identity theft to the Federal Trade Commission or even filed a police report, you may qualify for an extended fraud alert, which actually lasts 7 years. So that's really good in terms of time flexibility. Okay. And the cool thing about fraud alerts here is that it really gives you an extra level of security for that specific time period and still allows you to continue applying for new credit. You have that flexibility, that double flexibility, by the way, peace of mind, but also flexibility for applying. Like in terms of applying for new credit. So unlike with a credit freeze, you won't have to contact each credit bureau separately. Once you place a fraud alert with one of the three major credit bureaus, that bureau will alert the other two. So that's pretty good because if you were to think about the credit freeze where you have to do things separately, here you can actually just do it with one bureau, and they'll just seamlessly contact the other two to make sure that they hear the message that you want to really put a fraud alert on your credit files. So when you think about how to phrase your credit, it's important to understand that you have to really understand that there is a certain limit of restriction too. Okay, so but the good thing is you can still use your credit cards if you freeze your credit. So if you freeze your credit, you can still use your credit cards. This is totally easy. A credit freeze has no impact on your existing credit accounts, including credit cards. Okay, and so including credit cards, loans, and lines of credit. It's actually for new credit. So that's really where the protection or the restriction really lies. So that for new credit, you have some restriction. Okay. Now, basically, does freezing your credit doesn't affect your credit score. So in other words, you're not losing a few points in your FICO score simply because you freeze your credit. No. While freezing your credit can prevent hard inquiries from lenders, it doesn't impact your credit score in any way. So just be aware of that. And so a credit freeze is not like a fraud alert. I think I just clarified that a few minutes ago. So there is no expiration date when you have a credit freeze. You're gonna have to go yourself and to thaw that credit freeze, to unblock that credit freeze, to unfreeze your credit. While you can temporarily or permanently lift a freeze, it will actually remain in place indefinitely until you make that request, until you thaw that sort of restriction. Okay. Now, can anyone see your credit report, if you freeze it? Yes. The thing is that several entities can still view your frozen credit report, and I think, as I said, it's about new credit, existing credit, let's say credit interactions or credit stakeholders include creditors, landlords, utility companies, insurance carriers, debt collection agencies, and certain government agencies. I think I've said this before. They could still view your frozen credit report, not a problem. Nobody can extend credit to you, but they can still view your frozen credit report. So here's an epilogue into this conversation. I spoke to you about how to freeze your credit. I give you the generalities, the details, and finally the epilogue. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.